Keep me straight, Jeff. Here we go. All right. All right. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Okaloosa County School Board's workshop this morning here on December 8th, 2025. I call this meeting to order. Did you get it? Okay. All right. So I've done that. 2.1 is changes to the agenda. We have one on the consent agenda. We added item 7.37, revision to stop-loss insurance. Okay, moving along. Also want to let you know that we'll be recessing at 9:15 for another meeting we're required to have very briefly, and then we'll come back. All right, 3.1, recognition of Mr. Jody Dunn, Crestview High School Band Director. He's being inducted to the John Philip Sousa Foundation Legion of Honor. Quite an honor there. That's terrific. 3.2, recognition of Baker, Choctawhatchee, Crestview, Fort Walton Beach, and Niceville High School bands for achieving straight superior ratings at the Florida Bandmasters Association Marching Music Performance Assessment held on October 11th. So we'll be recognizing those students and their band directors tonight.
Madam Chair, can I comment on these two recognitions?
Certainly.
Mr. Chambers, I know in our travels across the district, I know we hear many things and about how we can improve recognition, and I've always had people ask, why do we just do certain recognitions? And the truth of the matter is that you're willing to do recognitions if they get to you. But what's really awesome about this is how we recognize the arts aspect, because we always talk about the A and the plus. You know, of course, normally athletics are taken forefront, but this is pretty awesome that we're recognizing the many talents that we have in the arts part of our district. So.
No, I'm glad you recognize that. This summer, as this board remembers, we have a fine arts liaison now, Mr. Wooten, who represents all the arts. And one of the things that we talked about this past summer was making sure that we do an even better job recognizing the arts. And this is one of the first examples of it in terms of coming before the school board. We've done multiple things on social media, but this is the first in terms of coming before the board. So it is very nice to see. And of course, we know our arts programs just across the school district, not only the high school, but middle school and elementary as well, just absolutely stellar. And they're a shining example of what makes this school district excellent. One example of that. So just appreciate that.
Okay. And to have all the high schools, I mean, that's just phenomenal. So great. Any other comments on that? All right, we're moving forward to 4.1. Appointment of Assistant Principal 2, 10-month at Ruckle Middle School, recommended by Mr. Chambers. 4.2, appointment of Principal Northwood Elementary School, recommended by Mr. Chambers. 4.3, appointment of Program Director, Human Resources, recommended by Mr. Chambers. 4.4, appointment of Assistant Superintendent, Academic and Student Services, recommended by Mr. Chambers. Moving to 5.1, this will be our comment. Members of the public desiring to address the school board regarding agenda items only, what we call the blue card. All right, moving to 6, committee and staff reports. 6.1 is in-county travel paid for October 2025, presented by Ms. Perry. And 6.2, out-of-county travel paid for October, presented by Ms. Perry. Okay, on to the consent agenda. Well, of course, 7.1 will approve the consent agenda with that change. And 7.2, approval of the minutes of the organizational meeting of November 10th, and the minutes of the workshop meeting of November 10th, and the minutes of the regular meeting on November 10th, as recommended by the superintendent. 7.3, appropriation of District 1 School Board member capital outlay funds to Silver Sand School for signage in the amount of $3,815.29, requested by Dr. White. 7.4, appropriation of District 2 School Board Member Capital Outlay Funds to Silver Sand School for that same signage in the amount of $3,815.29, requested by Mr. Destin. 7.5, appropriation of District 3 School Board Member Capital Outlay Funds to Silver Sand School for the signage in the amount of $3,815.29, presented by myself. 7.6, appropriation of District 4 School Board Member Capital Outlay Funds to Silver Sand School of signage in the amount of $3,815.29, requested by Mr. Bryant. And 7.7, appropriation of District 5 School Board Member Capital Outlay Funds to Silver Sand School for signage in the amount of $3,815.29, presented by Mr. Heinley. So you notice all those items are all the school board members helping each other in any way we can for the schools.
Madam Chair, I just wanted to say, as Silver Sands is in my district and area, how deeply appreciative I am to each of you as board members to come together and help out Silver Sands School. I know it shows solidarity for the little school that does a lot of very important, impactful work for our most important students. And so I just wanted to remark how much I deeply appreciate each of you supporting that school.
Certainly, yes. Okay. Moving to 7.8, request to advertise a public hearing in accordance with statutory requirements under S 1001.42, paragraph 4, item 5, F2, Florida statutes regarding school start times, presented by Mr. Meyer and recommended by the superintendent. 7.9, appointment of members to the 2026 Sales Surtax Citizens Oversight Committee, presented by Mr. Meyer, Assistant Superintendent for Operational Services, and recommended by the superintendent.
Ms. Ivanchek, if you don't mind, just like to go back just one.
Certainly.
To the school start time piece. And Mr. Meyer does have a short presentation that we'd like to present.
Okay, sorry, I was moving fast there, Mr. Meyer, apologize.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Good morning, Madam Chair, Superintendent, board members. Just want to talk a little bit about start times and what legislation is requiring us to do. And if we can get that PowerPoint up. Oh, I'm sorry. I wonder if Paul is back there, if he can hear me or not.
For time's sake, we'll come back to that during my presentation.
Okay, we'll move that to.
Mr. Myers, stay up there. I got you on the next one.
Okay, on the surtax?
Yes.
Is that one? Okay, all right, so we're moving back to now, we're gonna go on to 7.9. I mentioned that, this is the members of the Sales Surtax Committee. We have to re-vote for them in, so you have a comment?
I do. How many current members are on the sales tax oversight?
You would ask that. I think it's 8, but
And 5 is the minimum, right? But we have-
9, there are 9 people.
so 9.
Well, in the contract, I think it said, in the paperwork, I think it said it should be 5 members.
Minimum.
Yeah, so I was just wondering how that worked out. I mean, did that committee decide it? I mean, it's supposed to be appointed by us, right?
It is, and we looked throughout the county, and we tried to get representation from each part of the county. So 5 just wasn't enough, and we felt like the extra would be beneficial to be on that committee.
Okay. Well, if that's a hard number, we might need to want to change that. I don't know.
We could.
So,
And we could look at it, and this is now off the top of the head, which is dangerous. When we went back to the inception of that committee, there were a representation from the school board to have a choice, and then there was also a choice by myself as well as a superintendent. But we can get the exact number. Excuse me, the exact requirements.
it's a great committee. I just want to make sure that we cross the T's, dot the I's.
Yes. I'll circle back with Mr. Belcher on that. And we appreciate that committee, and they've all volunteered to stay on that committee.
I think that's what happened, is after the first go-round, some wanted to stay, and then there were some that had to be voted, and they just stayed, so.
They did.
That's why we got some.
Almost all of them have stayed.
Now, the second question on that sales tax oversight. So they're looking at everything that you put forward and double checking everything. So, the charter schools, we send them a prorated share of the sales tax?
We do.
And do they have a list of items that they do? Do they oversee that? I mean,
They provide Ms. Perry with that information on how they spend those funds, but they do not share with that committee the projects that they're working on.
okay. And they didn't submit a list to us. We just give them a flat prorated part of that sales tax?
According to the Florida statute, the charter schools are allowed to spend that money on anything they would normally spend capital money on. They
Capital.
don't have to follow certain lists.
Okay, thank you.
And it was part of our referendum that they would be shared with based upon the statute.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're going to move forward to 7.10. You want me to keep moving? Okay. 7.10, budget amendment number 2, fiscal year 25-26, presented by Ms. Perry. 7.11, monthly financial statement for October 2025, presented by Ms. Perry. 7.12, invoices to be approved for payment, presented by Ms. Perry. 7.13, school donations, presented by Ms. Perry.
Madam Chair, I'd just like to point out, we are just under 300,000, $299,704.16. That's for donations over $500. I want to, always say the community is huge. I wanted to give a special shout out to Dale Ferris at Battery Warehouse, $14,189 to Edwin's, just to the principal's discretionary.
That's
Pretty big,
fabulous.
pretty huge.
Wonderful. Appreciate all our community partners. 7.14, payroll warrant register and accounts payable warrant register totaling $41,091,913.15. Self-help insurance claims and fees totaling $3,403,887.44. And bank transfers totaling 0 for October 2025, presented by Ms. Perry. 7.15, revised fiscal year 2025-26 child care fees for Elliott Point Elementary, presented by Ms. Perry. 7.16, 2026 Okaloosa County School District legislative priorities, presented by Dr. Hale, Assistant Superintendent, Human Resources.
And Madam Chair, if you don't mind,
Sure.
I'd like to give a quick highlight. I'm not going to go through it like we did the last time, but just as a reminder to this board, we also made some of the adjustments based on comments that were made up here at the last meeting. So I do want to say, when it looks at education funding and resource allocation in terms of our legislative priorities, I will say there's been a lot of work behind the scenes, especially with our lobbyists and conversations that we've had. We do have conversations that we're having next week with our local delegation, one-on-one with them. But as it pertains to the funding side, we will be strongly pushing for a base student allocation that has the ability to fund inflation. And as we know, it was at approximately $170 a year ago to $47 last year. And it looks like, when you look at today's world, about $250 per student on the base student allocation is what you need. And when you're getting $47, that's a challenge. Also looking at, Mr. Gates has put forward a bill, and that bill is Senate Bill 318. I'll talk a little bit about it during my time. But the thing that I very much appreciate, one, that Mr. Gates, Senator Gates, is looking at this item and how FES is being administered across the state of Florida. I think within, and I would never want to speak for the state legislature, but I think that there's a strong belief of families having options, and I think, and you can speak for yourself as a board, but I think we've talked about, we're not necessarily against families having options, but the structure in which the FES is administered is something that we're really looking at. In our legislative priorities, we want that FES outside of the FEFP, our funding formula, and we will also push when we talk about a cap. And in my mind, and well, I'll just say in my mind, when you look at if there is not a cap, then how much money can continue to go out and how do you budget for something that doesn't necessarily have a cap? So we will talk strongly about that. We'll talk strongly about the impact of the FES for Okaloosa, but also across the state. When 27 million comes in and then goes right back out, how much of that money could have been for public education? So that's something that we will talk about as well. And then the challenges that that presents. In my time later, I'm going to talk about FES, but I'm also going to talk about enrollment. I'm going to talk about birth rates. I'm going to talk about fertility, all of those type of things. When all of that's coming together in one fell swoop across the state and really this nation, for those who are implementing this model, it creates a huge challenge for public education.
Mr. Chambers, you were talking about a cap. I think Florida is like the only state that doesn't have a cap. Am I correct?
I don't have all the statistics, but I know that there are several states who've gone to this model who have a cap. I can't say that Florida is the only one without it, but I know that multiple states have a cap.
Madam Chair, I have a question for the soup.
Okay, I'm sorry. Can we come back to that? We have to do our lease. Could you hold that thought and let me do this? So okay. So at this time, we're going to recess our regular meeting, and we're going to have a Okaloosa School Board Leasing Corporation Board of Directors meeting, which I will now call to order. All right, board members, you have an agenda. I need an approval of this agenda.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Bryant, seconded by Mr. Destin. Okay, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, it passes 5-0. All right. The next, section 3 is the approval of the minutes. These are the minutes of the meeting of April 22nd, 2024, the minutes of the meeting of July 22nd, 2024, minutes of the meeting of December 9th, 2024, and minutes of the meeting of May 27th, 2025, and minutes of October 27th, 2025. I need a motion of approval of these minutes, please.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Bryan. I need a second.
Second.
Second by Mr. Destin. Any discussion? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, passes 5-0. Moving on to section 4. Part 1, annual election of directors.
Yes, Madam Chairman, the organizational documents for this corporation call for the current seated school board members to be the board of directors. So we would ask for a motion to elect each member of the current school board as a board of director member of the leasing corporation.
So moved.
Okay, so moved by Mr. Heinley, second.
Second.
Okay,
Mr.
okay,
Destin.
Mr. Destin. Okay, any discussion? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, approved 5-0. Part 2, annual election of officers.
Yes, ma'am, and the organizational documents call for the chairman of the school board to serve as president, the vice chairman of the school board to serve as vice president, and the superintendent to serve as secretary of this corporation. So we need a motion electing those officers.
Okay, need that motion?
So moved.
Okay, motion by Mr. Heinley, second by Mr. Bryan. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, passes unanimously. Part 3, approval of the fee to the Florida Secretary of State for filing the 2026 Annual Corporate Report of the Okaloosa County School Board Leasing Corporation.
So moved. Second.
Okay, so I have a motion by Mr. Destin, approval, a second by Mr. Bryant. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, passes unanimously. Okay, any other business, sir?
No, ma'am.
All right, so at this time, I will adjourn this meeting, and then I will call back into session our regular meeting. Okay, then we are back on 7.16, and I believe there were some comments on legislative priorities.
No, we're on 7.15.
No, I think it's 7.16,
16.
Okay, sorry.
legislative priorities.
Yes, I had a question. I'm not asking for public math, but if you got everything on the BSA, what would that fiscal impact be for this district?
If it was $250 per student, I obviously would not have that math right here at the top of my head. I'd have to turn to Ms. Perry, but we could get you that information rather than trying to calculate that right now.
Okay.
And I say all that to say, because that base student allocation It also goes into categoricals as well, so it's not just a simple funding formula, but in essence, to break even, it's approximately $250 for the addition of a base student allocation in terms of keeping up with all the additional costs that come each year.
Any other comments on this item?
So still in the legislative priorities.
Right.
So we were talking about family empowerment scholarships.
Okay.
Any other comments there that I will go a little bit deeper into that during my time.
Okay,
But we also will talk about fully funding the textbook adoption. If this board remembers, we get approximately $2.5 million. About $700,000 of that goes to charter schools, so we get about a $1.8 million allocation for textbook adoptions. Textbook adoptions cost anywhere from the 3.5 all the way to the $6 million range, depending on the textbook adoption. I would venture to bet this year, which is ELA, that will be closer to the 6 million. So if we just even said that that was 2 million, that's a $4 million hit to the general dollars. So looking at if we're going to fully fund it and stay within the spirit of what the state of Florida is looking at in terms of making sure that we have strong instructional materials, I think it's important to fund that. Then we look at school safety. Our school resource officer program is a big part of school safety, which is about an $8 million venture. We're very fortunate that the county funds about half of that, or does fund half of that. And then we fund half of that through our state categorical and our general dollars. Our state categorical goes exclusively to the school resource officer program, which means any other enhancements comes through either capital or through general. And we talk all the time about layers. And when you look at student safety, our school resource officers are a huge piece of that. And they're a major layer, but you have to have other layers in place as well. And those either come from, again, capital, grants, or general. And we have Mr. Dean back there and his crew who do an absolutely outstanding job. And the amount of job responsibilities that has been added to that department over the years is substantial. So just in the spirit of truly putting number one student safety, which is what we believe here at Okaloosa County, also would like to see funding be a part of that. So that's a push. Then coming to our student support services and student mental health, one of the pieces that I definitely want to look at are our board, our BCBAs, and those are folks who have the ability to work with students with behaviors, just as the state did with mental health counselors. And they made that an allocation where they understood that mental health is absolutely important. I think we would all say that student behaviors have changed over time, and having BCBAs in place, and those are folks who are trained and certified to deal with student behaviors. I think in today's day and age, I think that's something that would be a benefit for school districts across the state of Florida. Then looking at the administrative efficiencies and looking at the requirements on teachers. And these requirements that are on them in and of themselves are important. They're absolutely valid. But when you stack them on top of each other, it just gets absolutely overwhelming for teachers. Again, I understand the good faith effort in it, but when they're stacked with what a teacher has to do just on a daily basis of lesson planning, classroom behavior, grading, attendance, and everything that goes on, and then these stacked, it just becomes a lot. And then also within there, there's a number of programs that schools have to implement, and they have to find out whether that's going to be in PE, whether that's going to be in social studies. So there's so many different programs that are, again, in and of themselves are excellent, but when they're stacked, it's just more and more that schools have to do. So that's something that we'll talk about. And then the workforce retention, again, continue to look at certifications, and very specifically the middle grades integrated, which would allow, especially for our ESE teachers, not have to get a certification in ELA, math, social studies, science, and ESE, to be able to get it in ESE and just middle grades integrated, and then move that up to the high school as well. So that's just a quick highlight. That's not all of the legislative priorities, but just want to give a quick highlight of what we will be talking with our local legislators about, as well as those at the state level beyond our local legislators.
Thank you, Mr. Chambers. Board members, anything on that you want to address at this time? Okay. All right, we're going to move on to 7.17, authorization of participation in the Florida Educator Health Trust presented by Dr. Hale.
Madam Chair, if we can talk about this particular item real quick, Dr. Hale. I for one am really excited about this. This is going to be another game changer for our district. So, Dr. Hale, if you don't mind.
Yes, sir. Thank you for allowing me to come up and talk about shorthand is Fleet. We call it Fleet. The BOG and I and Ms. Perry have worked really, really hard, as you know, over the last several years to find every single way to not only improve employee health benefits, but also save the district money while we're doing it. And to participate in the Florida Educational Health Trust gives us the ability to utilize economy of scale with risk sharing across other school districts to do a couple of different things. It allows us to address our stop loss at a different level, which provides the ability to not have to pay out as much health insurance claims. It allows us to utilize economy of scale, as I've heard many, many times. You know, purchasing on behalf of 3,000 bodies is a lot different than purchasing on behalf of 35,000 bodies, and we all understand what that means, everything from contracts to pharmacy, and so we'll be able to realize savings there as well. And then we also hope to see some benefits to the budget with regard to just premiums that we pay. Hopefully when you're kind of sharing a lot of the risk with other districts that are also highly rated and approved through this program to be very, very healthy, you know that you're going to get a lot of benefits in terms of premium also. So we're very, very excited. This engagement letter just simply allows us to begin the process of evaluating contracts, of utilizing economy of scale. We would not be able to go fully into the risk sharing program until our current stop loss, which you approved, sunsets. But you'll also see the agenda item that's added a little bit later is being put before you today so that we can maybe start utilizing this even a little bit more quickly. So Fleet's a great thing. The stop loss agenda item, which was added on to the end after publication, is a key component to that. Just a really, really good way to let the district leverage our own dollars for our own benefit. So,
And Madam Chair, if I can comment. So, board members, being the trustee for Florida School Board's Insurance Trust, I will say this particular idea was birthed within the Florida School Board's Insurance Trust. The problem is that we had members that weren't necessarily part of the Florida School Board's Insurance Trust, so we voted last year to separate it, and then the Superintendent's Association took it and ran with it. And now what we're seeing is you have large districts, medium districts, small districts. Everybody is participating in this. I say everybody, I think there's like 17 school districts now that are on board with this. So that's why I think it's a game changer, because you have all these different school districts that are going to be involved in this, and just really excited to see, you know, this move forward. So.
yes, sir. As you all know, with insurance, the phrase "safety in numbers" is very, very relevant. And the more bodies you have sharing insurance risk, just the better for everybody involved. Especially since Fleet does a really, really good job of evaluating districts. I mean, you can't just become a member of Fleet because you're a district. You have to be highly rated. You have to have a substantial health insurance. Well, you have to be very, very healthy from your health insurance portfolio.
Right.
So.
Yeah, and I believe you also have to be self-funded too.
That's right. You have to be a self-funded program. Yes, sir.
Madam Chair, this comment is more for the public than Dr. Hale, but so if I'm reading this right, so, you know, it's a substantial fee to go to Fleet, and there's a risk. You know, there's always a risk if you don't have, you know, direct return on your money, and you're going to get it through pharmacy calls, stop loss insurance, and shared savings. Got all that. And with the track record that you've done going to self-insurance, just that risk alone, by your past record, is worth doing that risk. But for the public's point of view, when we get down to 7.37, which is about the stop loss, if that happens, you're almost paying for the whole fee of going to Fleet just from the savings and stop loss. So everything else is gonna be above it.
That's right.
I mean, it's an excellent move in my opinion.
Yes, sir. And just one other thing that I failed to mention is that what I call the captive layer of the coverage far exceeds anything that we would ever see as a district in terms of our expense. It's really, really, it's very smart. It's very smart.
Yeah, I just want to say kudos because it's a no-brainer.
Thank you.
And if you don't mind, I'd add, so I think this program started with a couple school districts across the state being a part of Fleet. Now it's multiple. And I think here at Okaloosa, we're a little different. And what I mean by that is we have a bog. And that bog that's comprised of Dr. Hale and his group and some of the folks over there in their group who understand insurance. And really analyzing this and looking at what this would do for us in Okaloosa and looking at our actual numbers and having projections of what that would have impacted us, even from last year's numbers, it's definitely a benefit. And when you look at what Dr. Hale said, 2,000 in the insurance pool versus 35,000 in the insurance pool, and when we're in a day and age when we're talking about FES, base student allocations, constraints to the budget, inflation, we have to figure out ways to really maximize dollars. And this group has done a great job of that, even before Fleet. And if this is approved, this is going to be something that I think has the absolute ability to be a game changer for our school district, especially in the health insurance side.
Just one follow-up comment.
Sure.
So risk, risk can be defined in many ways, and a lot of people look at risk as the negative side of it. But this is a risk that's going to be a positive for us, and that's what I'm excited. We took a risk, and it's going to have a positive outcome. So,
Any other comments on this? Okay, thank you, Dr. Hale. Okay, moving on to 7.18, renewal of ITB 21-03 fire sprinkler inspection services presented by Mr. Wyndham. 7.19, renewal of ITB 21-04 fire alarm certification and repair presented by Mr. Wyndham. 7.20, tag-on bid purchase over $50,000, Lancaster Johnson and Associates, Inc., presented by Mr. Wyndham. All right, 7.21, tag-on bid purchase over $50,000, Dell, presented by Mr. Wyndham. 7.22, tag-on bid purchase over $50,000, Dale Earnhardt Jr. Chevrolet. This is for a fancy truck with big equipment and with a race car driver's name. 7.23, amendment to service agreement number 26-89, Heath Bloomer, presented by Mr. Wyndham.
I have a question on that, Madam Chair.
Certainly.
Opened up those amendments. There's a redacted part of that. Why is that? I haven't seen anything redacted before.
Okay, Mr. Wyndham here.
Maybe it's just his address, I don't know. Okay, all right,
Okay. We good?
good.
Okay. 7.24, renewal of fuel purchasing agreement between Liza Jackson Preparatory School, Inc. and the School Board of Okaloosa County, presented by Mr. Wyndham. 7.25, renewal of fuel purchasing agreement between Okaloosa Academy, Inc. and the School Board of Okaloosa County, presented by Mr. Wyndham.
Madam Chair, may I ask a question of perhaps Grant or whoever might be able to answer it? This is just I'm still kind of new question. I know that we have a lot of agreements to sell bulk fuel to some of the other folks who are using school buses, and I think we had some other folks who had big diesel vehicles. Do we have different prices for everybody, or is it mostly just a pass-through and it's just we transfer it to these folks at cost, just being good community partners? Okay. Great. Thank you.
Curious question, are all the school buses diesel?
Anything else? Okay. All right, 7.26, Memorandum of Agreement for Collaboration with the University of Florida Board of Trustees and the School Board of Okaloosa County, presented by Ms. Amy Dale. 7.27, State of Florida Classroom Technology Grant, TAPS number 26A526, presented by Mr. Mitchell, Director of MIS and Instructional Technology. And Mr. Mitchell, you want to speak to us on that?
Yes, ma'am. The grant that you have in front of you has to be changed. This was a very quick turnaround grant that came to us. Since we've presented it to you as an agenda item, the state of Florida has gotten back to us and asked for 2 minor changes that we need to make. One is a more detailed description of the training that teachers are going to go through, and one has to do with the checklist that we have to provide showing that items have been completed off the grant. Just a couple of minor things. There's no financial impact. There's no instructional impact. It's just some minor changes they want us to add. So when you see this today and what you see tonight will be 2 different documents, but we should have that to the board within the hour.
So how does that work when we're changing an item?
He'll present the revised grant, and these are revisions, as I understand it, requested Friday by DOE, so they're just to complete the grant application process.
Okay, so we'll just we'll just change it out.
Yes, ma'am.
Gotcha.
We'll get those to Mary as soon as they're done.
Okay, fine. Any questions on that, board members? Thank you, Mr. Mitchell. All right. 7.28, School Affiliation Agreement between the School Board of Okaloosa County and Healthcare for Kids for the Practical Nursing Program, LPN, and the Professional Nursing LPN-RN program at Okaloosa Technical College, presented by Mr. Williams. And I see he's here. Any questions about that? That program's doing great over there, Mr. Williams. Appreciate it. Any comments? Okay. Moving on to 7.29, course adoptions for Okaloosa Technical College for the 25-26 school year, presented by Mr. Williams. 7.30, tag on bid purchase over $50,000 recorded, I don't know, record, whatever is presented, presented by Mr. Smith, Dr. Smith, excuse me, Program Director for Facilities Planning. All right, 7.31, amendment to the underground easement for Florida Power and Light at Pineview School, presented by Dr. Smith. 7.32, agreement to grant Florida Power and Light an easement for the city of Crestview at Pineview School, presented by Dr. Smith. 7.33, agreement to grant Florida Power and Light an underground easement for the city of Crestview at Pineview School, presented by Dr. Smith. 7.34, underground distribution facilities installment agreement between the School Board of Okaloosa County, Florida, and Florida Power and Light Company at Pineview School for the city of Crestview, presented by Dr. Smith.
Madam Chair, may I ask Dr. Smith a sort of a very quick question? I haven't been able to go out and do the big tour of Pineview yet, but I understand the purpose of a lift station is to take your sewer effluent and pump it up to where you can get it to a higher elevation, right? To where it can meet with water sewer treatment facilities that typically are provided by municipalities, county, things like that. We don't have a water sewer treatment facility that we're plugging into. Is that correct out there?
We entered into an agreement with the city of Crestview, giving them the easement for the water tank and giving them an easement for that lift station, which meant they were going to put those 2 facilities on our site, which eliminated any cost of bringing those services to our site, which would have been millions of dollars.
Yeah.
So they'll be pumping that to their regional sewer plant just right down the road, just about a mile south of the school.
Thank you.
And the water will be coming from their wells to the tank. There is no well on the site, but there is a tank on the site.
Okay. Yeah, I appreciate that. Thank you.
Is Pineview in the city limits of Crestview?
Pineview School at this time is not in the city limits of Crestview, but they're in the water jurisdiction and sewer jurisdiction of the city of Crestview, which is 2 different things.
Gotcha, thank you. Okay, all right. All righty, then we're at 7.35, request to apply for the Florida Safe Schools K-9 Grant Program 25-26. TAPS number 26A348, in partnership with the Okaloosa County Sheriff's Office, presented by Mr. Dean. All right, 7.36, Educational Program Support Agreement between the School Board of Okaloosa County, Florida, Okaloosa Technical College North, and Crestview Robotics and STEM Hub, Inc., CRASH, presented by Dr. Smith.
Madam Chair, if it's okay with the superintendent, could Mr. Williams come up and talk about this program? Sure.
So thank you very much, Mr. Bryant and board members. Good morning. This group, CRASH, is a really awesome group for kids, after-school activities and things like that. There's a number of benefits of working with this group. Obviously, it should always be about kids first, and it is. But it's also full of a lot of industry partners that serve on the board for CRASH, as well as serve as guest instructors and things like that for students that are a great benefit to Okaloosa Technical College North, because they're the industry partners that are working in this field of manufacturing, and so I'd love to tell you that of the 18 programs at Okaloosa Technical College, I'm an expert on all of those trades and all of those areas, but probably the best thing I have going for me is to be able to listen to really smart people and be guided and given ideas to work with. And so when it comes to eventually placing our students from the college side, this is a group we'll want to be connected with and coordinating with. It will also be something that the students who come through those programs that are on that site, hopefully they'll aspire to do things in the trades and in the areas at Okaloosa Technical College North. So just a really great partnership, I believe. And I do have from CRASH, if you have questions specific to what they do, I do have Mr. William Hills and Mr. Neil Emerow are glad to take any questions about CRASH if you had those. So.
Okay. Board members, any other further questions? That's exciting. Exciting program, as always.
Madam Chair, I don't have any questions, but I would like to thank Superintendent Chambers. I know Mr. Williams was really excited about this program, but I was approached by a couple of folks that wanted to really explore this avenue, and Mr. Chambers agreed to meet with them, and here we are. So I want to thank Mr. Chambers, Mr. Williams, and everybody involved in this process. So thank you.
I have a quick question. Does this fall under your purview, Dr. Smith? I just see your name on there.
Listen,
I got you. Okay, thank you.
that the program would come under.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, that sounds good. So,
Madam Chair, I know we got a little bit past it, and that's my fault. I had just a question about one before, which was 7.35.
yes, the K-9.
Mr.
K-9
Dean,
number.
could I invite you up here just to explain, if the grant was awarded, what that program would be and how it would look like implemented in schools? Because it's fascinating, and it's a part of the component of how we're going to try to keep all of our kids safe if this grant was to come in, and I think the public might benefit from hearing about it.
Yes, sir. Appreciate it. The grant program, as it is the K-9 grant program, allows districts to apply for grant funding. There's a set allocation from the state of Florida that allows school districts to implement a gun detection K-9 into their school districts in collaboration with the sheriff's office or whatever law enforcement entity is contractually providing services to that specific district. Now, the unique thing about the grant process is the funding is dedicated to fiscally constrained districts in the state of Florida. So those districts first have the opportunity to be awarded the entire allocation of that grant funding. If any specific district per se doesn't apply for that district, then that money that didn't get allocated to the fiscally constrained districts goes back into a pot, for lack of a better term, to where other districts throughout the state of Florida could apply for that grant. That's new this year. So this request that is before you today is just an opportunity for us to ask for your permission to work collaboratively with the sheriff's office to look deeper into the possibilities of us being able to apply for that, whether this year or in years to come, now that it has been authorized for non-fiscally constrained districts to apply for that, to look deeper into that option for our district.
So we're not fiscally constrained?
We are not, according to the state.
At the school board conference, every district said they're.
For the purpose of this, we've been identified as not being fiscally constrained, yes.
Mr. Dean, if, I didn't see it in the packet, how much would it, if granted, how much would it be, and approximately how many dogs would we potentially be able to deploy in the schools?
Well, that's the unique part of it, because the money is already allocated based on the way that they're doing this, as opposed to, say, the fiscal security hardening grant. Is this is actually based on the number of schools in the district. So the schools, the districts that are identified as fiscally constrained, the number of schools per those districts are divided up based on the allocation of the state and already earmarked the amount of money that they would get. So we don't know, the districts that may look at applying for this in the future would not know exactly what we were going to get, because it depends on how much money is left over. Then that goes back into that pot and is divided out by the number of school districts that apply for that, with the formula to include the number of schools per district that go in there. So the short answer is, right now, we would have no idea how much money we would possibly be allowed to ask for. So if we were to submit the grant, we would submit that grant, again, in collaboration with the sheriff's office, on specific items that would be within the scope of the cost of a canine, to include, equipment, cost, training, salary for the handler, those types of things. But there would be no guarantee per se how much we would get from that. So that's the difficult piece of it for those.
But if we got at least just even one, these are the types of dogs that are not like German Shepherds or your Malinois. This is probably going to be a dog. I see that there's a component where in addition to firearm detection, the dog would also have animal assisted therapy component. So like maybe a lab or something.
Right, so this dog would be trained, the requirement of the grant would be this particular dog is trained in gun detection and may also be trained as a therapy dog. That's not a requirement of it, it's a may component of that, but it would be primarily a gun detection dog, and like you said, it would not be a breed that is the typical.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that information.
Yes.
Thanks.
Any other questions or comments on that? All right, so it takes us back down to, we did 7.36. We're going to 7.37, which has been mentioned a little bit earlier. Revision to stop loss insurance presented by Ms. Cato, Director of Risk Management. So we've talked a little bit about that earlier, okay? All right, moving on to Section 8, Superintendent's Human Resources Recommendation. 8.1 is for information only, employees on administrative leave, presented by Dr. Hale. 8.2, information only, deferred retirement option program, presented by Dr. Hale. 8.3, out-of-field report for the 25-26 school year, presented by Ms. Duran, Program Director of Professional Services. 8.4, employment separations, presented by Dr. Hale. 8.5, personnel recommendations, presented by Dr. Hale. 8.6, employee transfers, presented by Dr. Hale. 8.7, employee suspension, presented by Dr. Hale. 8.8, leave without pay, presented by Dr. Hale. 8.9, reinstatement, reimbursement of sick leave due to line of duty illness, injury, or medical examination, presented by Dr. Hale. And 8.10, Superintendent's Department restructure, presented by Ms. Perry, Chief Financial Officer.
Ms. Vanchek, if you don't mind,
Certainly.
I do want to say to the board, as you know, we have Dr. Hale, who will be retiring. We have Mrs. Lightbourne, who will be retiring. So Dr. Hale being over Human Resources, we have Mrs. Lightbourne over Academic and Student Services. And there's going to be some adjustments that would be made if approved. And rather than doing this at separate times, I wanted to do this all as one overarching department restructure. Part of that restructure happening in the second semester, and then the other part, which would occur with the 26-27 school year. You have that restructure before you, but I just want to share I think it's important, if you're looking at doing a district department restructure, especially where we are in today's budget times, that we look at being as fiscally responsible as we can be, but still be serviceable and still do a great job servicing our schools. This proposal would be a savings of $234,814 in the second semester, and then an additional $124,140 next year. The next year is just where we are right now. There could be other things that come, but this department restructure would be a savings of $358,954. Don't say that at all for a pat on the back or anything. It's just a fact of trying to look at where we are and still have a strong district staff to be able to service our schools and do a good job for our school district.
Any comments, board members, on that?
I have a comment.
Mr. Bryant?
I appreciate the proactive instead of reactive. Too much I hear across the state that districts are being reactive, and it's good to be proactive on this, so thank you.
Thank you.
And Madam Chair, you deserve a pat on the back. Your whole organization, from top down, this is excellent work.
Okay. Any others?
Yes, ma'am. I just had a question regarding the amount. So, Superintendent, did I understand that your reorganization would save money for the school district, and what was that figure?
The answer is yes, and the total amount would be $358,954.
All right. So certainly I would defer to our math expert, Mr. Heinley. But if that remained constant, then I guess over a period of 4 years, that's over $1 million that would be saved by the school district with this restructure.
Your public math is correct there, Mr.
Thank you. And $1 million is that's a significant amount. And I think the record should reflect that your office and your staff, though no jobs have gone away in terms of responsibilities and duties, you're shifting those things and reducing those positions so that we can meet some of the shortfall in funds that has certainly been significant for our school district. So again, as the other board members have said, you deserve to be commended for that. And I think it shows the public and everyone else involved that we're doing everything we can to put our house in order and try to make all of this work. So thank you for doing that.
And I would like to, as you talked about making some exchanges, I would like the public to be aware that while they may hear a different title for a position, we're not creating new positions. We're shifting some things where there's different responsibilities for different things. And if they'll look at that closely, they'll see that we're not just adding people, that indeed we are saving. And these, we've made it clear. You have, Mr. Superintendent, and this board in the last few meetings that we are facing challenging economic times. And again, we need to be proactive, and I appreciate all the work you've gone to, because while you're looking at this, we still have a job to do. There are things to get done. And there will be employees that will be taking on additional duties, bottom line, but that's just the way it has to go for us to maintain the caliber of school district that we have.
This is the first step in decisions and challenges that are before us. This is the first step, and there will be other measures as well.
Absolutely. That's just what we have to do. Okay. All right, moving along. 9 will be discussion agenda. We don't have anything at this time. Item 10, construction program owners representatives business. 10.1 is a program status report by Mr. Heinling.
And I'll have that full report tonight. We have our meeting right after this one.
Thank you, sir. All right, 10.2, funding and owner direct purchase, ODP, of a new chiller at Bruner Middle School for Task Order 27, presented by Dr. Smith, Program Director for Facilities Planning.
And I'd like to, Madam Chair, to tell the board that this is a little unusual. Usually we do a GMP and we get it validated and we go for the project. But the timing to get this chiller in, we needed to get the order in now. Your GMP will probably come at the next meeting. And, you still have the option to say no or yes at that meeting, but we'll need to put it in the queue now. So a little unusual, but.
And a chiller goes to the air conditioning heating system, right? So people know what that is, okay. All right, moving along to section 11, attorney's business, 11.1, Mr. McGinnis.
No report this morning.
Thank you, sir. 12, superintendent's business, out-of-state student trips and so forth. What do you have for us this morning, Mr. Chambers?
Thank you, Madam Chair and School Board. I will say for the school board and those in attendance, get comfortable. Okay, so there's a number of items that we're going to discuss, and I want to start off with we've talked a little bit about safety, and as Mr. Spolsky comes up, we are blessed here to have a safety department that I would say is second to none. And I go back multiple years, and I can remember it was 2019, and we had a whopping department of one, and that was Mr. Dean, who has since that time continued to do an absolutely great job. When we talk about safety in Okaloosa County, we talk about layers. That application that was there, that's a layer, an additional layer of what we're trying to do for safety. But when you look at the individuals in this department, they are absolutely professional. They absolutely do a great job. The requirements that they signed up for are not the requirements that they do today. They continue to get more and more. And for student safety, that's a great thing. For their stamina, I'm not so sure, but they do it very well. So with that, we're going to be recognizing them today, and I'd like Mr. Spolsky to come up and talk about this outstanding group of individuals that support our school district, and specifically our students and our employees very well as it pertains to safety.
On the previous slide, if Mr. Demers could go back one, I want to bring the public's attention to our pillars. And we all think of Okaloosa County School District as one of, if not the top district in the state of Florida, and that's because of the people. And at the top of those pillars is our academic success. But equally at the top is we can't be academically successful without feeling safe in our schools. And that's something that we all have to embrace. And this team that's here today, I'd like to stand, for them to stand, if you would, and be recognized, is Ms. Sheets. She does all of our bookkeeping and support pieces. Mr. Rick Patrick, who is our fire safety foreman. Gary Venuti is out there helping with all of our work as it pertains to on the ground, investigating, analyzing, making recommendations as a security expert and safety expert. Cedric Peterson, new to the team, come in as our school and our district threat management coordinator, outstanding job. And then, of course, our Q of the group, Mr. Dwayne Walther, who helps principals, who helps all of our folks out there making sure the stuff is working to keep us safe, whether it's radios, our mobile trailer, or even our Verkada cameras. And of course, they're all led by Director Dean, who is known throughout the state, who has served on many of our state committees, who has given input not only during the Marjorie Stoneman Douglas commissions, but all of these folks working together with all of our schools, with all of our principals and administrators, with pushing out training, simulations, and real-time practices. I just want to tip my hat to each of you. It has been a pleasure to work alongside each of you and lead you, but also learn from you. And I appreciate what the Office of Safe School does for our board and for all of our schools out there. Superintendent?
And I think Mr. Spolsky said that well, but we don't want to wake up or go to bed without these individuals right here. And I say go to bed purposely because oftentimes they're not going to bed because they're dealing with things late into the night, and just absolutely appreciate it. But it goes throughout the school district from the safety side all the way to what Rick does over there as well. So just very much appreciate that, and the school board might have some words as well.
Anybody want to comment?
I will.
Okay.
Again, I can speak for what Mr. Spolsky said about our safety program, because I hear it from other school districts, that they don't have this level like we do, and that's a testament to not only Mr. Dean and all the people that are involved in that. It's just a testament to the school district that we make safety a priority. So, it's always a good feeling, for us when I hear Mr. Dean's name is mentioned throughout the state, and how our district is one of the leaders and not a follower. So.
Madam Chair, I want to concur with that. At the school board conference, we're blessed to split the cost with the county on our SORs. I mean, that's great, and what you've done. I can only imagine, Soup, that when you call me, I always answer because I think, uh-oh, what's going on? I bet you don't like to get the call from Mr. Dean over there. Uh-oh, what's going on? So probably if we don't hear from you, everything's going great. But good work.
All right. Well, I want to say, I don't think you realize, first of all, how large our district is until you get in the car and you start going. And with the schools I have, from Baker to Florosa, and you go around, and then how many buildings, facilities that we have that these folks have to go and inspect and do so many things. It's just, it is a huge job. But like you said, because they're doing that, we can all kind of take a breath because we know that it's being taken care of, and if there's any concerns that, and the bottom line is they're as dedicated as we are in protecting our students and our employees so that we can educate students. And a student can't learn if they're worried about being harmed in the day. So I just appreciate it. It's amazing. I was just sitting here thinking back when I was in the classroom, we had the worst thing was just a bomb threat that we kind of got into a rote thing of walking out and walking back and all that. But it's safety just in our world, and certainly with our schools has come a long way. I worked for many years with Mr. Venuti over at Choctaw, and we covered a lot of bomb threats, didn't we? Choctaw had a record like 13 in a row back in the day. And so it's come a long way that they've done that. And of course, I do have to say, and I know the rest of them won't mind this, I do kind of have a favorite in your department. As you know, that Mr. Patrick is my brother. And so I get to learn a lot about fire safety that I didn't know. And it's interesting to hear what he does. But I want to thank all of you. Appreciate what you do. And I know you're behind the scenes most of the time, and people don't even see you and what you do. But again, we appreciate all your efforts. Thank you. Anyone else? Okay.
And with that, I want to shift to the school start times. And as this board knows, there's statutory requirements of what all 67 school districts have to do across the state of Florida. If you remember, this was a legislative law that school start times were going to be a certain time, and Mr. Meyer can go into that when he comes up. And then it repealed that to where you didn't have to go to those start times, but there's certain things that you have to do statutorily. So, Mr. Meyer, if you come forward.
Good morning. We'll try this again. So, yes, Mr. Chambers is right. In 2023, there was a decision made at the state to mandate that the middle schools start at 8 or not before 8 o'clock, and the high schools not start before 8:30. Now, there was discussions way before that, and of course, that's why that got to the state. And then when that was put in place, districts throughout the state had to look at how that would fall into place. And when those decisions were being made, I think it got back to the state that this needed to be a local decision, and some of it was not as easy as probably laid out. So there was a statutory change in this year, in July of 2025, that says school districts could be in compliance if they followed the information needed to the state to keep the start times as they are. So Okaloosa County School District, we're looking at keeping the start times as they are. There could be minor adjustments just because of the new school and efficiencies in the bus routes. So we'll have to provide that information to the state by June of next school year, or next calendar year, 2026. And what that means is, if you could move forward, Hillary, is the information that they want to be in compliance is actually still being worked out. So they're going to give each school district a template to fill out. There's a development of rulemaking this Friday at 9 o'clock. So some of that has not even been fleshed out. We've contacted the state months ago trying to get ahead of this. And we have some of the information that we know legislation says, but the template that they were supposed to provide us is not in our hands as of yet. So this Friday, we'll find out a little bit more information. But we do know that, go ahead to the next slide, that they're going to ask for our current start times. So we'll have to list our elementary, our middle school, and our high school start times. That's fairly easy. And then they want to look at some of the considerations that we looked at, whether we needed to adjust our times or not. So big part of it was within our transportation department. Ryan Gore and his team and others looked at what that would look like if we restructured the routes. And knowing that the elementary schools were going to be the big adjustments. So do you put an elementary school start time before the middle school or high schools or after? So just looking at that scenario in itself, you were going to have young kids standing at bus stops in the dark or staying late in the afternoon. We looked at our current 3-tier system to go to 2, and you can imagine how many more drivers and the length there, so there were some issues. So we looked at the tiered system. We did some analysis of shifting that elementary start times and the impact that that would have. We looked at adjusting extracurricular activities, especially athletics, practice times, games, transportation to games, how that would all come into effect. And then staffing considerations. We had to look at our master contract. What would that look like if schools were normally at 7 o'clock as a high school currently starts to a 9 or 9:30 start time? What does that look like throughout the district as far as work hours, contracts, substitute coverage, and so forth?
Mr. Meyer, and Madam Chair, might it be all right to ask a question
Certainly,
at this
sir.
time? So this looks like it's going to require some hours.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, and this is something new that districts are being required to do. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
All right, and I know it goes without saying, but this is a legislative mandate. And was there any funding provided for this, for the districts to spend all this time and effort doing something that basically they've been doing for a long time, and now there'll be a form, I guess, or there'll be some kind of worksheet that we've yet to receive, but you guys are already having to spend all this time to put all this data together, and with no funding to assist with that. I'm just curious, whose office does the responsibility for this fall upon?
You're right, there was no additional funding, and
Right.
we've spent quite some time.
But who's doing all this work?
Multiple departments, and I'm taking the lead on that, of course, with all of our stakeholders.
Okay, well, for a long time, you know, we've taken the position of no unfunded mandates, and by the way, not just the school board. Other government entities have taken that position, but here we go, and here's another one. But thank you for doing all that.
Sir. And then, of course, the family impact, what that looks like with daycares, siblings that watch other siblings, supervision after school. That was all factors that we had to consider. Also had to look at financial, to your point, Dr. White. what financial impacts could the district occur? And we looked at the additional cost that we would occur just within the transportation department. Would we need additional buses or drivers? Staffing at the school levels? Do we have to extend hours? Going back to the transportation department, the hours of the drivers would probably be extended. Facilities and programs, after-school programs, athletics, is there any financial cost with that? Keeping the lights on longer, that could be a financial impact as well. And then vendor adjustments, food contracts or after-school daycares, all those were put into consideration on the financials.
One more question. Is this a yearly endeavor, or do we know that yet?
I have not heard that this is going to be every year, but I'd anticipate that they could
Be some reporting requirement.
Yes, sir.
I think this was put in place to kind of save face a little bit. So, I mean, honestly, I think this is.
Yeah.
Yep.
And what Mr. Meyer's going through right here, like these costs, we're not even necessarily saying it's a negative. These are just factual bits of data.
I love it.
Yes, sir. Hillary, next slide, please.
Next slide.
And then not only financial impacts, are there unintended consequences? So again, going back to transportation scheduling, we have a set standard of service now. Could we even continue to do that when you start looking at tutoring and after-school programs, adjustments with us providing transportation, athletics, those time schedules. So there were many unintended consequences, and this is just a list of some of them. Again, the athletic and extracurricular times, the child care and family gaps, even students that work, the high school students that get out early and can work in the afternoon, will they be able to do that? Again, staffing and contracts, we have to look at that. Of course, our military mission, being in the military community, Eglin and Hurlburt, and how that would look if you're adjusting big time gaps between what currently is in place and now potentially it could be adjusted an hour or two. What would that do with those families trying to get the students to schools? And then, of course, the well-being of our students academically and behaviorally. What would that do with those adjustments? Would attendance and tardies be a thing? Engagement in the classes with those shifts in time. So all those were unintended consequences that we looked at. So what's next is we're going to continue to look at adjustments within the transportation department. We know there's some delays and double up on routes, so we'll do some adjustments where we need to with that, and we'll look at start times with our new school and others to see if we can help with the transportation. But we will prepare the compliance report that has to be submitted in June, and then as you saw on the agenda today, we'll have the public hearing, which is part of the legislation request too. We'll have that at the next board meeting.
And Madam Chair, if you don't mind, I'd just like to add, so fully understand those who are for a school start time and those who are opposed. And believe me, they're on both sides. But I would say one of the things that we have here in Okaloosa County currently, where the majority of the conversation revolves around, which is high school, is we do have the 7-period day currently. And it allows folks who want to have first period off and who want to have first and second period off. And we have folks who do that already. I think we're in a climate of school choice, school options for families, and this provides options for families as well. Just wanted to throw that in there.
So, Mr. Meyer, I want to make sure. So, in 23, they came up with the statute that says, but mainly it affected the high school times and all that. And then they got some static, so they came back and amended it. and said, okay, districts can decide what they want to do. So basically what you're doing, and you're the folks here, we're writing a justification as to why we want to keep that. Is that right? So now they're asking for that just to support why they said, okay, do what you want to do, but tell us why.
That's right.
That's where we are?
And specifically, we're following state law right now.
That's right.
Yeah, and so that's what the law is. We're going to do that right there.
And I would add, there were some school districts that tried to incorporate this quickly, and it didn't go very well. And I think there was some lesson learned with doing it too quickly.
Okay, but right now, the law is they're asking for this, and we have to comply.
Yes, ma'am.
And that's what you're trying to do, is get that so it goes in by June, you said? You have to have it in? And the other thing I want to say is, could you unless I missed it, put a safety issue up there too? Because if you have, the longer you're spreading out the day, going all this, the more you have to worry about the safety of more individuals, you know what I mean? It's in this window of time, that might be another thing to add, just a suggestion.
Yes, ma'am, we can.
And I will say, Ms. Sabanchik, you said some static. I think there was a lot
Oh,
of
yeah,
static.
coming out of the state, yes.
I think Miami-Dade was the one that led the charge on it, so I think you can't get no bigger than that. Madam Chair, if I may
Sure.
comment, we're fortunate because, again, we take a proactive look at things. But Mr. Chambers, a few years back, we started having these town halls with our students. And I know when this legislation was being talked about, that was a question I always asked the students at Crestview and Laurel Hill. And I respect our lawmakers. They have a tough job to do because there's so much going on in their offices and all. This would have been an easy fix. This would have been easy if they would have attended one of our town hall meetings, because the majority of high school students, all 3 years that we talked about this, did not want to start later. They liked this early start time. So I think the students' voices speak loud enough that we should have listened, so.
Okay.
And the last thing I'll say on this is, again, I fully understand both sides of the equation, but what I'll also say is today's public education and the challenges that we're facing today is different than 2 years ago, let alone 5 years ago.
Thank you, Mr. Meyer.
And Madam Chair, I just can't help, and I don't want to overdwell on this, but, it strikes me that the superintendent is consolidating or reducing positions, however you want to phrase that. And then we're handed another unfunded mandate reporting requirement. And it just makes everything a lot more difficult on him and his staff and running the school system. So anyway, I appreciate everything you and your staff do in trying to attend to all of this.
Certainly does not seem equitable, does it, Dr. White? Yeah. All right.
All right. So I have a couple fun things and then a media report. I do want to say last month we did the Thanksgiving food drive. I just want to thank Ms. Card and the entire team. Hundreds of meals, laptops went out across all of our schools. And I'll say when the families pulled up, hearing their heartfelt words, even some tears, it's nice when you look at our pillars and you look at one of them in terms of community engagement, us being able to give back to the community, our families, and the community also helping us fund this as well for our families. It was just, it was very nice. And on that topic as well, we go into our second annual Angel Tree with the Sheriff's Department. And so you will see that's occurring right now. Again, can't thank enough our community for pouring out for our students. This district office and the amount of folks who are single-handedly at the district office also purchasing for our families. This is a beautiful thing, and I just appreciate the sheriff and the Sheriff's Department for partnering with us to be able to do this, because we can touch even more students. And again, if you think about last year and these students who received these items who otherwise might not have received gifts during this time, I just think it's special. So just appreciate that. And I think some of you might talk about the 4th annual reality check event that we had at Choctaw for our students, so I'll hold on that. And with that, I want to get into a larger item. And that's going to deal with FES, it's going to deal with enrollment, and it's going to deal with decisions that have to be made as we go into the second semester. And Mr. Murs, do I have the clicker, or are you going to click? All right. So first of all, I want to go to, when you look at our legislative priority, when we were talking about the Family Empowerment Scholarship, and Senator Gates also is looking at the Family Empowerment Scholarships, and actually he was tasked to really dig in. And I'm very grateful that he's the one chosen to dig in, as you know. Former superintendent, understands public schools, understands funding, and understands this dynamic. And when you look at what they did is they had an auditor, in essence, look at the FES. And then the auditor had conclusions that that auditor then presented to the legislature, specifically Mr. Gates, Senator Gates's group. And in that, this bill addresses the implementation that the auditor set forth. Also, within this, it highlighted that 45 out of the 67 school districts across the state are experiencing decline in enrollment. And what we've always said here, and that's not something to necessarily pout about. We still have to handle our own business. We have to get even more creative. Family choice is there. Family choice is not going anywhere, even in this bill. Family choice will be alive and well. So we have to continue to strive to raise the bar. And here in Okaloosa, I stand firm with our schools, with our district staff. I've said numerous times, and I think this board has said as well, we're very, very happy with our teachers, with our administrators and staff and what they do. And they wake every day to come make a difference in the lives of students. Family choice is here. So it doesn't take away from that. But the fact that 45 out of the 67 districts are experiencing, I think in this presentation, substantial decrease in student enrollment. And part of what was stated is family choice is there, but the structure in which this program is set up may need to be looked at. And I just appreciate, again, Senator Gates doing that. And then it also targeted 3 weaknesses in the current system, and one of which is the tracking of students. I do appreciate the DOE this year has a much better mechanism for tracking students, and they're tracking students quarterly. Also looking at the financial accountability. I think those who receive these scholarship dollars, we need to know exactly where those dollars are being spent. And then looking at the accurate prediction of enrollment. If you listen to the entire presentation from the auditor's report to Senator Gates, when you look at the accurate prediction of enrollment and not truly having an understanding of how many students are out there, again, just appreciate the state legislature and the DOE looking at this in greater numbers, because this is I think as was briefed to me this morning, there might be as many as 500,000 kids in this scholarship program. So then you look at the proposed updates. So in Senator Gates's bill, looking at a separate categorical, this is very similar to what we've asked for, simplistically, the funding to be outside of the FEFP, our funding program. Secondly, looking at enrollment stabilization program. Now, this one's very intriguing to me. He talked about 45 of the 67 school districts across the state of Florida experiencing decline in enrollment, and looking at a stabilization of that. So do dollars go to those school districts who are experiencing this type of impact? And to me, this goes to whether it's going to happen or not, I don't know. But to me, this also speaks to, if there's not a cap, it's hard to predict. When you're doing FTE projections in today's environment of not having a true understanding of what kindergarten enrollment is going to look like, where historically you could, it gets very difficult to do FTE projection. And when you do an FTE projection, let's just say hypothetically that is lower than the previous year, and then it's even lower once you get into the school year. And again, we have to handle that, but school districts across the state of Florida are experiencing that per this bill. And then transparency and accountability. And right now, this year, there is a quarterly monitoring. This bill asks for monthly monitoring to make sure that if a student is receiving this scholarship, that they're not also attending public schools unless they're also paying for the classes that they're taking in public schools. So that's something that could be very beneficial. So very much appreciate the transparency and accountability aspect of this. And then the audit-driven reforms. And audit-driven reforms deals with, again, having an understanding where the kids are and ensuring that there's not double dipping that is occurring.
Madam Chair, if I can ask Mr. Chambers, every time you do a presentation like this about enrollment and the Family Empowerment Scholarship, you mentioned the number of students that are out there that have never attended Okaloosa County schools. And every time you say that, that's always brought it back, for me, is brought back here. How are we tracking these? Where's the money going? If we have, how many students did you say that have never stepped foot in Okaloosa schools but are receiving?
The vast majority of the students, and this is off the top of, I don't want to give it off the top of the head.
No.
I'll get to that in a second, but the vast majority of the students receiving the FES scholarship, factually, data-wise, never attended Okaloosa County schools. Yeah. So then you go to, that's just an update there.
Oh, wait, one thing back there, the amount of money, I was just shocked that is not accounted for by our state in this program. It's appalling that we would allow that amount of money, because if we had that money between the districts, it would certainly go a long way in getting us out of the challenge we're in now. That is just gross. As I know how this board and our district has to be accountable, along with our wonderful CFO over there for every penny that is used, I'm just appalled at the shocking amount of money that is sifted through this program with no accountability, no one questioning, and all of a sudden, I'm so grateful that Senator Gates requested that audit, because had not, this would just continue to just cipher out that amount of money that should be going to our students.
And again, if you watch that presentation from the auditor to the legislative sessions and the one led by Senator Gates, I think they expressed that sentiment. I think the DOE also expresses that sentiment, with evidenced by their efforts to strengthen the accountability system. And to tie back to this a little bit towards the end, where all of this will wrap up. But anything else further?
Yes, Madam Chair. Just a comment regarding this proposed legislation. I certainly appreciate Senator Gates and leading this effort and shedding some light on some of the, let's just call them problems that you alluded to regarding accountability of these funds. But and we can only hope that this passes the legislature and is signed into law by the governor. But in the interim, and I'm guessing, Superintendent, you're gonna move in this direction. We still have a significant enrollment decline, and which means that we have a significant loss of funds. And I appreciate the superintendent taking the first step today and discussing how he's going to realign and reduce those costs. And but the problem is that this doesn't solve our problem right now. And so, Superintendent, we'll just have to look to you and with board member input, how we're going to do that.
Absolutely. And I think, to that point, information is power. And with that, so I want you to look at the current enrollment of Okaloosa schools. And this is not FTE. This is student bodies, okay? And you look at to date, 27,829. And so that's a lower number than the start of the school year, okay? And there's several factors of that we're going to get into. And these several factors are statewide, they're nationwide. Some of us at this last conference, we had the ability to listen to a gentleman that talked about populations across the nation. And it was just riveting to me because it was probably boring information that he made entertaining. But right now, for the first time, and I think the existence of our country, we're seeing a decline in population. But I digress. But you can see here schools by the north end, the central end, the Destin community, and the south end. And you can see what the enrollments are there. Many of these enrollments are much lower than they were a few years ago. Then you go to specifics. If we look at 2014, 2015 to present, and let's look at the Crestview area. So this is an 11-year total, but you look at the elementary, middle, and high schools in the north end of the county, and you'll see an increase. And if you remember several meetings back where we've also discussed these items, we talked about Okaloosa as the tale of two counties. The north end where we are seeing significant growth, and then below the Shoal River, not as much. If you go back to, I think it's the 2019, 20, 21 area, somewhere in that time, the central part of the county was also in that 2% increase at the time. Since then, that's no longer the case in the central part of the county. If you remember back during that time in the central, we were talking about building a school. We took appropriate action. We've garnered land as well, but it's not appropriate right now in today's realm to look at a new school in the central based on student population. But the north end is where you are seeing growth. Then you go to the Niceville area schools on the elementary level. You'll see a decrease over that 11-year span, and then you'll see an increase for the middle school and an increase for the high school. And in a second, where you're seeing some of these increases, when we go to the next 10-year forecast, it might look a little different. And then Fort Walton Beach area schools, over the last 11 years, you'll see decreases at the elementary, middle, and high school level. And then the Destin areas, you'll see increase. And as we know, next year, 2026-27, you'll see fifth grade go back to Destin Elementary, and we've built for that. And then you'll see Destin Middle, which will now have the ability to have capacity at their school with fifth grade going to Destin Elementary. And then you look at Baker and Laurel Hill schools, also increased enrollment during that time, north of the Shoal River. So this is the Fort Walton Beach area. If you look at the elementary, 2015 to 26, this is just a visual, and you can see how the enrollment in total at the elementary level in Fort Walton has gone down to over from 4,800 plus students below 4,000. You see the same thing for the Niceville area in terms of a graph. The Niceville area, the drop is not as steep, but you've seen that it was going up. It was going up. It was the 2018-19, 19-20. We're saying, okay, we may need to do something here, and now it's gone down.
And Madam Chair, if I might, Superintendent, I don't know, but it looks to me like there seems to be a correlation with that chart and the current scholarships or vouchers, if you will.
No, absolutely. And you'll see the scholarships have been in place for some time, but the push
Right.
You can almost see in all of them the 21, 22 year.
Well, it was expanded too.
Correct. Correct. And highlighted and advertised to the point where I shared at the last meeting, I believe, that when the FSA reports go out, which is, think about the millions upon millions of students across this state, in there, it's here's your FES scholarship. So it's going out to everybody.
And Mr. Chamber, Madam Chair, if I could, so also, I agree with that fact too, but you mentioned the demographics. If what we saw at the conference this past week, that also lines up with the drop too, because, yeah.
And then you have the Crestview area, which has gone up, it's gone down a little bit, it's gone up, it's gone down a little bit at the elementary level, but still many more students at the north end than below the Shoal River. And then you look at, this is just the north end in general. You can see the trends going up in the north end, the central going down, the south going down. And then you look at going forward. So in essence, through 2034. Through 2034. Elementary, north end, you can see about 851 students up. South of the Shoal River, the next 10 years, you can see there's a decline. So overall, there's a net loss of 604 students over the next 10 years, K-5. But south of the Shoal River or south of the range, we're looking at 1,455 students. And then one question that some may ask is, well, where are you getting this data for the next 10 years? And as you know, we have the outside firm who helps with the rezoning in the north end. And they not only helped with the north end rezoning, but also did a student enrollment population trend for us going forward the next 10 years so we could see all that data as well. And so south of the Shoal River, about a decline of 1,455 students, which you already saw a decline even the previous 10 years. Then you look at the middle school level over the next 10 years. You can see the north end up, south of the range down. So an overall net loss of about 452 students, but south of the range about 902. And again, in a second, we're going to get into, well, why might this be? And it's not all just family empowerment scholarships. And then 9 through 12, you see north going up, everything else going down below the range. So a net loss of 707 at the high school level, but below the range, over 1,000 over the next 10 years. This is just a map of the south end of the county, and it shows every school's enrollment right now. And this was as of basically this week, in essence, and kind of looking at where we are, what does the picture look like. And so looking at the contributing factors, so if you look at the scholarships, and you look at, there's 4,935 scholarships in Okaloosa. And so you have PEP scholarships, which is not a part of the FEFP formula. That's its own scholarship that's funded differently. And there's about, if I can read that correctly off the top of the head, I think 1,633, somewhere in that area. And then of the FES scholarships, about 3,300. And the 3,300 is more than the anticipated FTE projection. And so you look at the financial impact of that, that's almost 30 million going out, coming to us and going straight out. And then on the PEP side, $13 million. Well, if I'm doing basic math, that's about $43 million just in Okaloosa County. Hypothetically, just imagine if some of those dollars were able to come to Okaloosa to support the work that's happening here in our county. And then you come on over, so the FES is broken into categories, so there's the unique abilities. So those are our students with disabilities, and then also the education option students, and those are others. So you can see the amounts there. Of that 3,300, again, and I apologize, I don't have the exact number right now, but the vast majority of those students did not attend Okaloosa schools. Do we have that exact number?
It's about 3/4.
So about 3/4 did not attend Okaloosa schools.
At all. That's right, at all.
So then you look here, and this is where I'm stretching my abilities, okay? And we're getting into birth rates. In birth rates, and this is across Florida, this is across the nation, where birth rates are going down. And so if you can see on the far right side, the 24-25 school year, so those children, I believe, were born in 2019. So there was about 2,680 students, okay? And that birth rate change, you look at 1.0. Now, I'm not a statistical expert, but you go down, that it becomes 0.95, 0.99, and then 0.959, 0.929. So the birth rate is going down. You don't want to go below 1. So the amount of students that are coming to us in Okaloosa, in many parts across the state, in many parts across the nation, the birth rates are going down. And then you look at fertility, and this is not a Marcus Chambers thing, because I'm obviously not a fertility expert. But you look at fertility of what they say across the nation, fertility is going down. So when you look at birth rates, in essence, the amount of kids being born divided by the population versus fertility of women in a certain age group, that fertility is also going down across the nation. And then the gentleman who spoke at our conference the other day, in essence, he said, well, you wonder why enrollments are going down in school districts. This is one of the factors that you have to look at. And again, just given information and data. Anything you want to add to this, Polsky?
I do. I just want to bring to the attention of the board and those that are out there watching, I know the graphic is small, but at the top band, it literally breaks each area out by zip code. And when this graphic, this study was done for us by our MGT partners, you notice that the northern county areas, those zip codes are highlighted in yellow, because that was what we were using to look at the proposals for rezoning the North Elementary schools. This is a contributing factor, not only in the North, not only in the South or our state, but across the whole nation, which I think Mr. Bryant asked at the last workshop, could we expand on this a little bit? If you really dig into the data, there are many of those in white, except for the Destin area, which are lower, much lower than the 1 ratio, which means, as our superintendent alluded to, a lot of young families, young women and young men are deciding not to have children between that 15 and 25 bracket, that decade there. And there's a bunch of reasons for that. Costs of food, cost of housing, and he'll expand on that. But the not to get bogged down in the statistics, but for us as a board, as a district, we have to think about even the potential of young people attending schools, regardless of whether or not they're attending our schools, OCSD, or another choice out there. So this is a very interesting statistic to look at. And the first part of having kids come to school is obviously to have a kid. And the second part is a place to live. And we've expanded that affordable housing is tough in Okaloosa County. It's especially tough in some of those zip codes. I made a list of 15 of my neighbors. I live in an established area in South Fort Walton. Of the 15 that I wrote down while Superintendent Chambers was talking, one of them, one house of those 15 houses has 3 children. The rest of them have no school-age children. So it's very interesting of what we are going through specifically in some of these zip codes.
What is that birth rate factor in your area? Is it 1 or is it below 1?
Much below 1. Much below. Because, I hate to say this, but at 56 years old, I'm the youngest one on my street. Except for that other house that has 3. Devin, who just moved in, who was a graduate of Okaloosa County and will probably send his kids to Okaloosa County schools. But we don't know that yet.
And as we go through this, again, I just want to be crystal clear. As enrollments have changed, as we've started talking more and more about FES, I've tried to learn more about just the factors of enrollment just in general. And again, it's more than just FES, which that's a major contributor, but there's also just nationwide phenomenon as it pertains to birth rates, as it pertains to fertility. And then you go here, so decline in enrollment. So you look at within Senator Gates's presentation as it pertains to that Senate bill, 45 of the 67 districts are experiencing some serious decline in enrollment. So you look at, so what are the factors, right? So you look at affordable, and I'm talking about Okaloosa, affordable housing. I think you look at the leadership in this county right now, they're striving to combat that right now and just appreciate that. You look at our local legislators, they speak very much to the affordable housing. I think this is a major item that's being discussed at the state level. Then again, here locally and nationally, looking at the birth rates and the fertility rates, but then going also to school choice. And we've talked about FES, and it would be very interesting to look at the increased number of private schools that are opening since FES are now becoming more prevalent.
Mr. Chambers, real quick, going back to that last comment that you made too, are we seeing an increase in the micro schools in our county also?
So I can't speak to exact number or anything like that, but I have, it's been briefed with me that we do have micro schools in the area. And then looking at the next steps. And so we have been, as this board knows, for some time now, we've been looking at enrollment across this district. Been looking at FTE and FTE projections across the district. We've already talked about what some of those factors are, but here are some of the challenges. So enrollment continuing to decline. You know, is that something that is going to be out there? We have to be very mindful of what our current school enrollments look like. Also looking at challenges that are out there, the base student allocation. If the base student allocation is going to stay what it is, if enrollments continue to go down for all these factors that we've talked about, well, just those two things right there, well, if you're doing an FTE projection, which you have to strive to be as accurate as possible, and if within the FTE projection, if that goes down, what does that mean? That means our funding's going down. And if we didn't do an FTE projection that showed a true reflection of where we are, we'd be paying back money. So that science that used to be there, where when I was a principal, when Mrs. Spolsky was a principal during the days, Dr. White was a principal during the days when it was site-based managed, and you had to do your own FTE projection, back then you could almost get within 5 kids, 2 kids, 3 kids. Well, those days where you don't know truly who's coming, those days are gone. And then you look at the challenges still, school choice options, there's multiple. Going into inflation, so you look at the contracts that are out there. We have some contracts right now that we've spoken in appreciation for. Some of those contracts could be changing because other entities are being impacted. Then you look at instructional materials, utilities, and services. Inflation is real. And then, so these are the things that we're going to have to look at.
Okay, can I jump in real quick on that? Then you can catch your breath a minute, because I know. So the some of those elements, I want to know if, or where the district is in working with our community partners, because things about housing and all that, that's just not a school district problem. And we can only control so much of that. So where are we in working with our chambers of commerce, with our county commissioners, with our other civic leaders in different areas, particularly in the South End? Now, the South End, you've got several things. You have aging neighborhoods, like Mr. Spolsky's saying, where actually people who are getting older are continuing to live in those homes. And so there aren't any children there. You also have a bridge going in that is, some people see as a, oh gosh, and I think that's going to help when that bridge gets fixed and building some of that up. But in general, I'm hoping we are working, particularly in the South End, with Fort Walton, with Mary Esther, Shalimar, all of those communities and those leaders in looking at this, and of course making them aware of the impact on our school district.
So what I will say about the housing affordability, there's a group, Ted Corcoran leads a group that's comprised of Eglin officials, Hurlburt officials, leaders across this county. We are a seat at that table. I'm not saying that we're the driving force of that, not saying that at all. Ted Corcoran is the driving force with the other entities looking at affordable housing, but we are on that. I've attended, Mr. Spolsky's attended, Ms. Card's attended, and try to be a resource. And we've talked about how affordable housing here in Okaloosa and across the state is also an impact of hiring teachers.
Right. Mm-hmm.
That's just another piece to it.
That's right.
And to your question, Madam Chair, I would say beginning Tuesday afternoon, stretching all the way out till the winter break, we will begin a comprehensive communication plan, not only with commissioners, chambers of commerce, military and base liaisons, all of those key people, talking through some of these different facets, making sure that not only if they're a member or a group with us, like the Champions of Education, all those key business leaders, but also some of those secondary, tertiary partners that are there doing the work that depend on our schools to make sure we're preparing their kids for post-secondary. So we want to bring, if anything, we want to over-communicate our current position and where we will be looking to go down the road if these numbers stay solid.
And also, that brings back to what Dr. White brought in about school times. Once again, we are taxing our school district resources, our people, and working on this. We've not really, as far as I know, and I've been in this district pretty much my whole life as a student, whatever, had to work on this. So now we're having to spend a lot of energy and time trying to, bottom line, we've never really much worried about where the kid's going to come. It was just once we got them, how we were going to do that. Now we are. And so again, this is putting more on our people in the district to have to do this, along with taking care of the general day-to-day educating students. I just hope the public is seeing what's being put on our district. And there's just no playbook by it. So many things change so rapidly. I know y'all just came from a conference, you're hearing that. There's some things like on the time they're telling us, but they haven't even given us really what they want from us. It's just, it's kind of day by day trying to do that. And it's that adds to the challenge of it. And I hope everybody can understand the situation we're in. But the bottom line is, and I know you're going to get to that, the things that we can control, we're going to have to control, this board and this district, if we're going to continue to offer our students the best education and survive it.
Well, and I'm glad you said that piece right there. Control the things that you can control. There's some who've come to me and they've said, why don't you go for a millage? Mm-hmm. And you look at where we are with what's happening with property taxes and all those things, which we'll see where that falls. And the thing that I've said to those who have come is, first of all, we have to first handle our side. And if we have seats that are open at multiple schools, then we have to be able to handle our business first. And so I think it's just incumbent upon us, with where we are, with all the realities of what we've talked about this morning, is I think we have to be responsible with the dollars that we have and make decisions accordingly before going to taxpayers. That's just my opinion. You all could think differently.
Madam Chair and Superintendent, and I'm sure you and everybody else is going to get tired of hearing me say this, but it brings back something that was said to me a long time ago, that we don't get money for empty seats, period. We're funded based on enrollment. And from what I hear, I think I understand that if, and I'm going to round it out, if we're down 4,500 students, that is more than a small chunk of change. And that means that we've got empty seats, and we're not going to get funding for those, even if the new bill passes. And that's just how this system really has always worked. And that's really all I've got to say.
Madam Chair, if I can jump in. I think we know where this conversation's probably headed, which is on our side, we have to take care of the fiscal health of this institution. And this is a deeply complex issue. The conversations that surround it are deeply complex, but we still need, like you said, in order for the general public and voters to understand why we're making our decisions, it is imperative that we communicate with them and do so in a way that assumes perhaps a substantial portion of the electorate deeply just doesn't understand school finance. My trouble when I was running for election was when I would get on somebody's front porch and say, hey, I'm Parker Destin, vote for me, I'm running for school board, was I would have to spend the first 5 minutes of just our time together trying to get them to understand the differences between a county commission and a school board, that they're not the same. To get them to understand that the way that school money flows doesn't act in a way like we run our households, or that you might run your business, where you have unfettered control. Once the money comes in, then we decide how it gets spent. There's so much from an education standpoint that has to occur so that we can have the next most important conversation, which is the one we're trying to have, just to help them understand that, hey, listen, the big giant budget of the school district, half of the money only comes from property taxes. The rest of it's coming from state and federal sources. And oh, by the way, it comes with tons of strings attached, and all of that money flows into certain buckets. What I'm bumping into when I talk to the general electorate right now is they go, you know, you guys keep crowing about lowering enrollment and the money's not, and you seem to be there, you know, very, very worried about the money. And you go, but you have money for artificial turf, or you've got money for new roofs and multi-purpose buildings. And you go, thank God we do. But that comes from a separate pot of money, which is different than the pot of money that comes from the state and specifically enrollment. And I have to explain to people, hey, listen, while we might have money for turf and for improving roof, like I don't have a bag of gold over here in one pocket, because no matter if I had an unlimited amount of money, that pot of money, I can't pay school bus drivers with it. I can't hire more teachers. That money that's operational money. And they go, oh. And they realize how deeply complicated it is. And so we have a task ahead of us as we make these very difficult decisions, just to get the electorate to understand how deeply complex that while we have money for certain things over here, it is constrained, it's handcuffed, it's categorized, and that these are, while we might be doing okay in this one, let's say at infrastructure, from the operations standpoint, we are not flush with cash. We're actually looking at declining enrollment, and that leads into the education of why we're trying to be as nimble and non-reactive, but planning to hit on Member Bryant's point that if we don't anticipate what some of this stuff is coming down the pike, we as an organization, whether we're private, whether we're government, we have to evolve and adapt or we're going to go extinct. And I think that's probably where we're headed in some of the tough decisions that we're going to have to make so that we're ready, because declining enrollment is one threat. But I think if I was in superintendent's role, I don't know how much sleep you get, because there's so many threats to public education. But I think one of them that I think about, and perhaps you do too, is the general discussion about property taxes and the reduction and or abolition thereof. And yeah, maybe we can rest assurance that, oh, well, they're not talking about school taxes yet, but they are talking about county taxes. We talked earlier, $8 million is used to make sure that our children are safe in this district. But half of it is carried by the county commission, who funds the sheriff's office budget. If the county commission gets beat up too hard on property tax reform, I bet you they might want to talk to us about how we'll have to carry more of an SRO budget, and where is that money going to come from? So all of these things mean we've got to be ready. We've got to be ready, and I think it means tough decisions, but by golly, I mean, that's what we're here for. And I know some of these decisions that we may be coming up against are deeply politically unpopular, but we got to be ready. And I appreciate the superintendent for leading the charge with saying, hey, listen, we're going to do some of the first cuts here at the administrative level, because that's leading from the front, and that's appropriate and good. But I'm interested to hear about where we're going to go for next steps, because I'm ready, because it's just the way it is.
I appreciate those words. One piece that's not on here in the challenges is called co-location, and that's when you have certain schools where charters can come in and take empty seats. You heard what Dr. White said. We do not get funded for empty seats. And a matter of fact, now, not only do you not get funded for empty seats, a charter school can come in and take those empty seats. And who do you think pays for that? The charter schools do not pay for that. We have to pay for it. We have to pay for the custodial. We have to pay for the administrative. We have to potentially pay for the transportation. We have to pay for those empty rooms. And so I said at the last board meeting that I would come at the December board meeting to you, but I also said at that meeting, but I'm not going to be rushed. You will have a recommendation at the January 12th board meeting, specifically what the recommendation will be based on everything that we just talked about this morning. The last thing that I do want to say touches what Mr. Dessin just said. And we have different pots of money in Okaloosa. And there are several. And what Mr. Dessin just said, when you look at the complexity of school finance, it is far and wide. But just simplistically, let's just go to two pots of money, capital in general. And when you look at capital can only be spent on capital items. Items such as new construction, maintenance and renovations, technology, buses, debt service payments. There are some employees who can be paid out of that, and we absolutely do that, such as some of our bus drivers, not necessarily all of them. Some of our maintenance folks, we have the ability to pay out of capital, okay? But then when you get to the general side, what can we spend general on? Well, positions, so that's our teachers, that's our ed support, that's our administrative, it's our instructional materials, it's benefits, it's supplies, it's utilities, it's operating expenses. It's now the categoricals that have been placed into our FEFP that once weren't necessarily there on the general side, but now it makes it look like more money's going in. But those are there. We cannot use capital dollars to do teacher raises. Can't do that. We can't use capital dollars to do our educational support raises outside of what I already spoke about. So there's capital side of the house dollars, and then there's general side of the house dollars. Let's go back to 2020 and go before then. And we talked about having the oldest facilities around. We talked about, I believe it was at the time, 45% of our buildings, 75 years of age or older, somewhere in that area, the oldest bus fleet. Well, we no longer have the oldest bus fleet, not by far. We have almost 120 new buses, and at the time there was about 160 in operation. We now have classroom additions. We now have multi-purpose buildings. We now have new cafetoriums. We now have single point of entry. We now have new roofs. We now have new air conditioning systems. We now have new bathrooms. We now have new flooring, doors, and the list goes on due to the half-cent sales tax and a stronger capital budget. And we've talked about this on the capital side being a comprehensive look at what we do in Okaloosa for our school facilities, for the arts, for athletics. We're further along in some areas than not, but we still have almost 5 years to go, if I'm doing my math correct, with a half-cent sales tax. We are 70-something% of the way through the half-cent sales tax projects and half of the way there. So we're going through that. But, and I fully understand when folks say, well, why do you do this when you can do this? I fully understand it. Mr. Meyer wouldn't love it, but I'd love to be able to take as much on the capital side and go ahead and honor folks the way that they should be honored. But you don't have the ability to do that.
Mr. Superintendent, for the public's idea, when you say we can't, that means we can't by Florida statute.
Correct.
So it's not we're deciding it. Florida statute says we can't take that money and mix it with other money.
Florida statute dictates that, as well as Florida statute will dictate the different ways that you can spend different pots of money. Now, of course, on the private side, they can do what they would like. On the charter side, in essence, they can do what they would like, but we don't have the ability to do it. If you've ever watched the movie The Perfect Storm, that's where public education is right now. Mm-hmm. But again, it's not a whining thing. This is where we are. Just like we got through COVID, we will get through this as well. But it's going to be hard decisions. It's going to take leadership. It's going to truly take Team OCSD to be able to do all this.
And Madam Chair, if I could, along with the superintendent's remarks, this, and having had some experience, as you said, with this, this is all about enrollment forecasting. And I use that word because we all know what happens with weather forecasts. All right, they change. And I think this forecast, this close proximity forecast, is certainly accurate, and the numbers show that. I think that unless things change significantly in both areas, in terms of the birth rate and in terms of the scholarships, this forecast is likely more than accurate. And I would also say, and some of you may have seen you mentioned micro schools. You might have seen the 60 Minutes special on the AI school in Houston. The tuition there, I think, is about $90,000 a year. But I think all of those kind of things, the micro schools, the potentials in the future, those all factor into this enrollment forecasting that makes it incumbent, because this hasn't changed. This school district must operate on a balanced budget. That's the law. And so that's not going to change. So I just appreciate all the good work and the effort that's gone into this enrollment forecast, because it certainly requires our attention.
Well, and I appreciate you saying that piece, and I go back to, because I want this to be crystal clear. It's not about complaining. It's not about whining. It's about the reality of where we are in public education in Florida, across the nation. It's a reality. And if we do not make adjustments, then that reality becomes even more negative. and we have to be able to make adjustments and have the absolute best school district that we can here at Okaloosa. And we're going to have a fantastic school district. But it's a reality of where we are, which means you have to be prepared. And that's what we're trying to do.
And I want to say, as you're saying, a good school, I mean, our school district continues to rank high. I don't know our exact number right now. I don't know what number we are, but always in the top. And we've consistently done that. And a lot of while we talk about capital funding where we've done this nice buildings and all that, that's one thing. But also, look where we've come in our CTE programs and what we're offering our students. It's night and day from when I went to high school in this district. We've moved with the times. We're continuing to offer our students a variety of things, an emphasis on being employed and all the things that we're doing. So I just think what we're able to do for our students, and we've consistently done that. And again, what we're doing now is we're changing and being proactive like we did with course offerings, like we did with getting our buildings, our infrastructure. Unfortunately, this one is more a little bit on the negative side in that, it's a hardship, but I still think we're offering our students such a wonderful experience in our public schools here. I just don't know how it could be a better situation, and we're going to continue to do that with the resources we have, but it would be nicer if we had a little more wiggle room to make those choices, but we don't, so we're going to do that. And again, I don't think that's whining. I think it's allowing us to explain what our situation is. That doesn't mean we're complaining about it. We're just saying, this is it. I think it would not be doing due diligence if this board and you as the superintendent and your staff did not let the public know and let this thing ride out, and then all of a sudden we're truly in crisis mode. That's wrong. But what we've been doing, and we've been saying it for a while now, and we're saying it in not saying we have to talk down, but it's a complex thing that even those of us on the board have to study and work with, and we're putting it out there and as a straightforward manner as we can, as to ins and outs. And there's a lot of different lingo and stuff that we use, but we're hoping that the public can see that. But to me, that's the best we can do, and maybe even as much to say the public can be partners with us in coming together to move this school district forward.
Madam Chair, I want to go back to the demographic we talked about. In that study that I was with the superintendent, the South has risen again. The South is the only area in this country that is having a population increase. Every other part of the country is decreasing in population because people are moving to the South. And that goes into something that wasn't mentioned. It's the silvering of the United States right now. I mean, and being in the South, they say that a certain percentage, they're going to move down here to be within 50 miles of the coastline. So, like your neighborhood, I mean, some of those people, they're there, they're not leaving. There are other people coming in without kids. So that's one reason that we're having a population increase. Texas was number 1, Florida was number 2. And we're having a population increase, but it's not the kids.
Mr. Hinley, but so you said the South is rising and we're going up in population, and then you said the silvering. So I just want to be sure, so there's no misinterpretation. So just explain. So population is increasing in the South, but this population is due to what?
Age.
Age.
There's a lot of retirees.
Yeah. I mean, see, he's got silver hair. Look at that right there.
What about this, man?
But so that's a fact. I mean, we're going to have to deal with all things. So you have your fertility and your birth rates, but you also have our population aging faster than the rest of the country because they're moving here. So the bottom line is we're having empty seats. And hopefully Senate Bill 318 is going to pass and take that on, and that will have a fiscal impact to us, which is great, but also if they tighten up that Family Empower Scholarship, less people will be taking advantage of it, or probably fraudulently taking advantage of it right now. And that might help our numbers. But Family Choices here, I back it 100%. But this district and all the districts, we have to get a mindset to be marketers. We have to market our school. In the old days, you had your public schools, you did it. You didn't have to go sell your public schools. We have to sell it. And the way we sell it is by our accomplishments, all the good things we're doing. And the things that other schools, the private and the charter schools can't get, the CTE, the higher level stuff, those are things we need to sell and market it, and we just need to have that aspect from going forward. We are now competing, because of Family Choice, with public, charter, and private. You'll always have your faith-based younger grades that always will be there, but as they get older, and I had made a prediction, I thought we were going to top out at FEF, the scholarship, because people are going to realize, why am I going to send my child to a charter school private when I can get a better education at the public school with more opportunities? So we need to be in that mindset.
Or the things that they can't have, get. I mean, we have students, like you said, who come to take certain courses we offer or programs we offer or different things. And bottom line is that the money needs to come with that. I mean, if we're going to offer a service like anything else, that's what we're doing, then there has to be payment. Instead of being able to be over here and use our services but not pay, that's not gonna work.
That's all I have.
Huh? What'd you say?
That's all I have.
That's all you have? Oh, is that it? Okay, all right. Anybody else, anything on that before we move on? Okay, so thank you, Mr. Superintendent. Appreciate that. All right, moving to 13 is board members' announcements, requests for information. Mr. Heinley, you want to start us out?
I'll try to keep this fast, been a long meeting. I want to do a shout out to the Niceville High School swim team. They'll be here later, but they've done excellent. State champs, boys state champs, individual medals. I mean, they rocked it, and we'll hear all about that later, but it's just a quick shout out on that. Continue my tradition, today is the 8th school board members. Who is the 8th president? Who was the 8th president of the United States of America?
John Quincy Adams.
Nope.
You were wrong. Sit
Van
down.
Buren.
Van Buren, Martin.
That's known as a harsh desist.
Well, it's not often we get like the single digit.
I know.
In our board.
But for Mr. Destin, 8 plus 31, who is the 39th president of the United States?
Let's see, 39. Could that be old Jimmy?
Yes, and you need to keep your eyes forward and don't look at my notes right now here. That's all I have.
Is that it?
That's it.
Okay, but I won. Okay, so this is Mr. Destin, what you have for us?
I'm going to say, I just have some superlatives to brag on some folks, and I'm going to save those for tonight.
Okay, great. All right, moving on, Mr. Bryant.
I too have some announcements. I'm going to wait till tonight, but I do want to make one since Mr. Dingus is sitting over there with the debate team at Crestview. But I do want to shout out because earlier we were talking about how we recognize the arts and the athletics, but this is the academic piece that we talk about. And it's just not Crestview High School, it's Fort Walton Beach High School. The debate program in our county has really has risen to the top, and I just want to say a shout out to all of the students and the teachers who make up the debate program in Okaloosa County. Great job. Keep up the good work.
Okay, and Dr. White?
Well, I have a couple of announcements, and first of all, I want to extend congratulations to the Choctawhatchee football team for a great season and for being regional champions, and also to thank the public and the school board members and all of the schools and really the whole county that supported Choctawhatchee in this effort. Also, a couple of other things. Congratulations to the Choctawhatchee Indianettes, who garnered several awards in Tennessee this past weekend. First place in varsity game day, second place in hip hop, and third place in varsity pom. And then congratulations to the Choctawhatchee cheerleaders who won Best Team Pyramid and Small Varsity Traditional and overall grand champions of the entire competition. So it was a great past couple of weeks for Choctawhatchee High School. Thank you. That's all.
Okay. Anybody else? All right. Yeah, I want to comment on the Choctaw because what that was to me, it surpassed an athletic event. And I know we were there Friday night, and it really brought together our entire district. People came from all over the district. The different high schools sent banners of support to the school. They all sat in the student section. Students from all over the district were there. It really did give us in our district a commonality to root behind, to bring it all together as one team. It became Team Okaloosa. And while we wanted the score to be different, one thing I noticed at the end of the game, typically you see people upset and defeated, that kind of thing. Not so much. I think those players and everybody knew that what Choctaw did made such a, no one's had that record. No one's been the county champs, all the things that they were able to accomplish. And of course, I'm just going to say it, the team they played was a private school. So I think, and they have different rules, but I thought that it was such a positive thing to see our district come together. And it was just an exciting night to see, an exciting week. So congratulations to Coach Beasley, the other coaches, and Principal Heck, and all the folks at Choctaw, and for our district. I think it's great. I do have to make some announcements about our Public Schools Foundation, because always doing great things with the foundation. So they always give teacher grants, and they just went around and gave those. And this year we gave 19 teachers against around 12 different schools teacher grants. This is grants for them to buy instructional materials for doing different projects in their classroom. And there were 11 first-time recipients, so new teachers getting these grants. So they go up to $2,000 each grant. So that's a lot of good stuff. Also, another project that the foundation does is a financial literacy event called Reality Check that was held last week at Choctaw High School, and 80 different students attended this, where they go to different sections. They have a budget, and they have to form their own personal budget for groceries, all those things. They went through all that, and a lot of community members come out to work those different things, and it was sponsored by Origin Bank, along with some other different vendors that come in there and really sponsor it. They really support that with our students, and we appreciate that. But that's a great program for those students to learn how to buy a car, all those things. And of course, that comes from our financial literacy classes, which are really good. So another great project of the foundation. Okay, let's move along to 14, which is public comment, the yellow card version, which 14.1, members of the public desiring to address the board with general comments. All right, we do have some public hearings. 15.1, public hearing for new school board policy 02-22, risk management claims settlement, presented by Mr. McGinnis. 15.2, public hearing for revision of school board policy 06-33, administrative leave, suspension and dismissal of employees, presented by Dr. Hale. 15.3, public hearing for revision of school board policy 08-09, duties, ethics, professional conduct, presented by Dr. Hale. 15.4, public hearing for revision of school board policies in Chapter 5, student education records, presented by Mr. Spolsky.
Madam Chair.
Yes, sir.
I have some comments on that one.
Okay.
15.4. I had mentioned this earlier when we were bringing it to the agenda, and I just want to elaborate on it more.
Certainly.
Tonight, I plan on not voting for this. I'm going to vote no right now unless I'm being convinced otherwise, and I want to explain. The overall thing on student education records is good, and it's brought forward to match what the state has at the DOE rec, and that's all we're doing. So In that process, it's good. I like that. But as I was reading it, and one thing that we added to it, it's not because we came up with the idea, it's because the state has it. And under purpose and content of the student education record, so 3A, it says Category A, permanent information, verified information of clear educational importance. So remember that. And you go down to B2, it used to say authenticated birth date, place of birth, race, and sex. And we're adding ethnicity to it. Why are we adding it? Because that's what the state level has at the DOE. So we should follow the state. But, you know, I had to educate myself, right? So I had to understand exactly what that is, because there's confusion among that. So ethnicity, by definition, is the quality or fact of belonging to a population group or subgroup made up of people who share a common descent or cultural background. Okay, for examples, Irish, Zulu, Jewish, Hispanic or Latino, Native American. So you belong to this group, self-identifying, or someone identifies you to that group, and it's regardless of race, and you can be multiple ethnic groups. And so you think about that. So you're going to sign up for multiple ethnic groups, and it's also volunteer information. It's not mandated. You don't have to put it in your record. So the argument of finding statistics for whatever reason is blown out the window, because you don't have a good domain that's broken down to a group, because you don't know who's applying, putting this information down or not. So I have a principal issue of what ethnicity has to do with anything for teaching a kid in our school district or any school district. It shouldn't matter. They walk through the door. It doesn't matter if they identify as a Jew, Jewish or Irish or Hispanic or Latino. It doesn't matter. And so I disagree with it. I'm going to vote no on it just because of that. I do agree we need to match the state, and this is a state battle. So therefore, I've contacted the Florida DOE, and they are researching it. Their first guess is it's tied to federal mandates, and they're going to get money or do whatever. Well, just because a federal mandate says something doesn't mean we can't question it or should not question it. So I'm going to vote no based on principle tonight. And meanwhile, the Florida DOE, they're doing great. They're doing the research, and they're going to get back to me, so we'll see where it goes. That's all I have.
All right, thank you. So are we mandated to put that on our form?
The State Board of Education rules
Says we did.
require that and have that as a defined part of that type of student record, yes, ma'am.
Okay, and so you've talked to the state, and they're pushing it on to the federal.
No. They're researching and find out, and they'll get back to me.
Okay, great. All right.
But I would think Mr. Heinley made a key point here, is that it's voluntary, correct? On whether a parent fills that out or not.
And does it say that on there? On the form? Okay.
No.
Mr. Heinley, would your feeling on it soften if you knew that what the exact purpose of it was? And if it was, let's say, for warehousing the data sets that certainly are needed to create the conclusions that, let's say, the professor that we heard this past week, the demographer, he has to give us information so that we can make those types of decisions, but what's his data set? Could it be from certain warehousing or this type of information that flows up, which is a legitimate purpose, so that we can make those sorts of decisions, because we can start seeing how people, based on the groups that they separate themselves into, are moving, having children, not having children, which is the issue we've got. Would your feelings soften on it if there was a legitimate purpose, which I think you would agree that would be, for the collection of this information?
Well, my feelings and my thoughts might soften or harden, depending on what the reason is.
Yeah.
Okay, and we don't have that yet. Okay, thank you.
Okay. All right. Anybody else? All right, let's moving on to 15.6, public hearing for adoption of a new job description for Director 1 Human Resources, presented by Dr. Hale. Okay. All right, before I adjourn, anything, excuse me. Yes.
Just want to congratulate someone who might have retired from the school district after many, many years of great service to this, to OCSD. Just want to congratulate Mr. Strong, though he's not going anywhere. I just want to say thank you for all you've done over the many years of serving this county, and especially the students.
Yeah, thank you very much. Yes, that's great. All right, anybody from senior staff have any other comments this morning? Okay, and then speaking of that, would you like to make a comment? Mr. Strong? You good? Okay, Mr. Dingus? Ms. Appleberg? All right, okay. Anybody else? All right, then this meeting is adjourned.
All right.